I never imagined I'd be the one telling a story like this. Not because there's any shame in it, I didn't do anything wrong, but because I honestly believed my life was solid. I thought it was unbreakable. I never once considered that everything I knew could collapse in a matter of weeks, like glass hitting concrete. My name is Ethan Walker. Just 2 months ago, I was living what most people would call a perfect life. I had a beautiful wife, Rachel, and 2 incredible kids, Sophie, who was 14, and Max, who had just turned 11. I owned a successful marketing firm in downtown Chicago, and we lived in a quiet suburb in a house we'd spent years turning into our dream home, one renovation and weekend project at a time. Rachel and I had been married for 16 years. 16 years of building something together. Morning kisses before work. Family vacations. Late-night conversations in the dark where you promise forever without ever doubting it. At least, I never doubted it. Or so I believed. Everything changed on a Tuesday night. I remember the day clearly because I just wrapped up a major deal with a new client, one of the biggest wins my firm had landed that year. I was riding that high, already planning to surprise Rachel with plane tickets to Aruba for our upcoming anniversary. She was supposed to be out of town, attending a 3-day marketing conference in Detroit. The kids were spending the night at my sister's place, and for once, the house was quiet. I was standing at the kitchen island, flipping through client files, enjoying the stillness. That's when the doorbell rang. It was 9:47 p.m. I know the exact time because I remember glancing at my watch, confused about who would show up that late. When I opened the door, 2 police officers were standing there, their faces serious, almost heavy. "Mr. Walker?" the taller one asked. "Yes," I said, and my stomach dropped before he even continued. "I'm Officer Harris, and this is Officer Collins," he said. "May we come in? It's about your wife, Rachel." The world seemed to slow as he spoke. They told me Rachel had been taken to Northwestern Memorial Hospital. She'd been found badly injured in a hotel room in Chicago, not Detroit, after what they described as a violent altercation. "That can't be right," I said, my voice sounding far away, like it didn't belong to me. "She's at a conference in Detroit." The officers exchanged a look. I would come to recognize that look all too well in the days ahead, the mix of sympathy and discomfort that comes from knowing something devastating while the other person is still in the dark. "Sir," Officer Harris said gently, "we think it's best if you come with us to the hospital. The doctors can explain her condition, and there are some other matters we need to discuss." I grabbed my wallet and keys without thinking, my hands moving on autopilot while my mind spiraled. What hotel was she in? Why was she in Chicago? Was she going to survive? The drive to the hospital barely registered. Officer Harris drove while I sat in the passenger seat, gripping my phone like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. I called my sister and asked her to keep the kids overnight. I told her there had been an accident, but I didn't have any details yet. When we pulled into the hospital parking lot, I noticed my hands were shaking. It wasn't exactly fear. It was adrenaline, the kind that hits when you know you're about to step into a moment that will change your life forever. As we rode the elevator up to the 4th floor, I finally asked the question that had been burning a hole in my chest. "Do you know what happened to her?" Officer Harris cleared his throat. "She was found in a room at the Lakefront Hotel. There was an altercation with a male companion." The words slammed into me. Male companion. Not co-worker. Not acquaintance. Companion. Inside the hospital, a doctor met me in a small consultation room. Dr. Carter was in her 50s, with tired eyes and a calm, reassuring voice. She explained that Rachel had suffered multiple bruises, a broken wrist, and a concussion. She sustained injuries but is currently stable under medical care. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Relief washed over me, followed immediately by confusion. "What happened?" I asked. "Was she robbed? Was it just bad luck?" That same look crossed her face, the one that told me I wasn't going to like the answer. "Mr. Walker," she said carefully, "the police will need to discuss the circumstances with you. Detective Morgan is waiting outside." Detective Morgan was a stocky man with a closely trimmed beard and sharp eyes that seemed to notice everything. He asked me to sit down. That was the moment my world truly began to fall apart. "Mr. Walker," he said, "your wife was found in a room at the Lakefront Hotel. She was registered there with a man named Daniel Brooks. Do you know him?" I shook my head slowly. "No. I don't think so. He's listed as an employee at Price Marketing Group," Morgan continued, "the same company your wife works for." My brain struggled to catch up. Rachel had told me she was in Detroit. Detective Morgan nodded. "According to hotel staff, your wife and Mr. Brooks have been regular guests for several months. Usually on Tuesday and Thursday evenings." The words landed like punches. Regular guests. Several months. Tuesdays and Thursdays, the nights Rachel said she had late meetings or office happy hours. "What happened to her?" I asked, my voice barely holding together. "From what we've gathered, they had an argument," he said. "Mr. Brooks claims your wife told him she wanted to end the relationship. He became violent. A guest in the neighboring room contacted security after hearing screaming and what sounded like furniture being thrown." I sat frozen, feeling the blood drain from my face. "Where is he now?" I asked. "He's in custody," Morgan said. "He's being charged with aggravated assault." He kept talking after that: procedures, next steps, questions, but I barely heard a word. My mind was racing through memories, replaying moments I'd never questioned. The late nights. The sudden work emergencies. The business trips. The lingerie I never saw her wear. The guarded text messages. The growing distance between us that I'd blamed on stress and busy schedules. I had been completely blind. "Can I see her?" I asked, cutting him off. He nodded. "She's in room 412. But Mr. Walker," he said, pausing carefully, "she doesn't know we've contacted you yet." My chest tightened. When she briefly regained consciousness, she listed her sister as her emergency contact. That was the moment it truly sank in. Another quiet, twisting knife straight to the heart. Even in the middle of a crisis, she had still tried to keep the truth from me. That realization sat heavy in my chest as I walked down the hallway toward room 412, feeling strangely numb, like my emotions had shut off just to let me function. When I pushed the door open, the sight inside nearly knocked the air out of me. Rachel's face was badly swollen and covered in bruises, her right eye completely swollen shut. Her left wrist was wrapped in a thick cast, and several machines hummed and beeped quietly beside her bed. The woman lying there looked unfamiliar, almost like a stranger. And yet, she was my wife of 16 years, the mother of my children, the person I had trusted more than anyone else in the world. I stood there for a long time without moving, just watching her chest rise and fall. Anger, hurt, fear, and disbelief crashed into each other inside me. Part of me wanted to shake her awake and demand the truth. Another part wanted to walk out and never look back. But deeper than all of that was the need to understand how the life I thought we shared could have been built on something so false. A nurse stepped in to check Rachel's vitals and startled slightly when she noticed me standing there. "Are you family?" she asked softly. "I'm her husband," I said. The words felt bitter on my tongue. She gave me a sympathetic look. "She'll most likely sleep through the night with the medication she's on. You may want to go home and come back in the morning." I nodded, but I knew there was no way I could go home, not to that house, where every room, every photo, every piece of furniture suddenly felt like part of an elaborate lie. Instead, I crossed the street to a 24-hour diner and ordered a cup of coffee I barely touched. As the night dragged on, I made 3 decisions that would shape everything that came next. First, I would not fall apart. Not then. Not later. Rachel had already taken enough from me. I wasn't going to let her take my self-respect, too. Second, I would protect my children as much as possible without lying to them. They deserved the truth, even if it had to be delivered gently. And third, I would rebuild my life. Whether forgiveness ever found a place in my heart or not, I would come out of this stronger. By morning, the shock had faded, replaced by a cold, focused clarity. When I returned to the hospital, I wasn't there as a worried husband anymore. I was there as a man who needed answers. Rachel was awake when I walked into her room. Her one good eye widened when she saw me, then instantly filled with tears. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice rough. "I'm so sorry." I stopped at the foot of the bed, keeping my distance. "Sorry for which part, Rachel?" I asked calmly. "For cheating on me for months? For lying about where you were? Or for getting caught?" She flinched like I'd struck her. "Please, Ethan," she said weakly. "It's not what you think." I let out a short, bitter laugh that surprised even me. "Really? Because what I think is that you've been sleeping with your coworker, Daniel, while looking me in the eye and lying to my face." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "I think you betrayed our marriage, our family, and everything we built together. So go ahead, tell me what part I'm wrong about." Tears streamed down her face, cutting paths through the light makeup someone, probably her sister, had carefully applied over the bruises. "I made a terrible mistake," she sobbed. "I got pulled into something that never should have happened. But I love you. I love the kids. Daniel doesn't mean anything to me." "He meant enough," I said steadily, "for you to risk our entire life. He meant enough for you to lie to me over and over. To make up conferences and meetings. To check into hotel rooms with him while I was at home helping Max with his science project and telling him his mom was working hard out of town." She reached for me with her uninjured hand, but I stepped back before she could touch me. "Ethan, please," she said through tears. "I know I hurt you, but this isn't who I am. Daniel made me feel special. Wanted. Things between us had gotten so routine. So predictable." "Stop," I said, feeling sick to my stomach. "Don't you dare blame this on our marriage. If you were unhappy, you could have talked to me. We could have gone to counseling. You had 1,000 options before choosing to cheat." She swallowed hard and gestured weakly to her injuries. "He hurt me, Ethan. When I told him I was ending it, when I said I couldn't do this anymore, he lost control. Doesn't that show you I was trying to fix things?" I looked at her, then really looked at her, this woman I thought I knew better than anyone else on earth. "No, Rachel," I said quietly. "It shows me you were trying to avoid consequences. And only after everything spun out of control." A nurse appeared in the doorway. "Everything all right in here?" I nodded tightly. "I was just leaving. My wife needs rest." As I turned to go, Rachel's voice broke behind me, full of panic. "Ethan, please don't tell the kids. Please. Let me come home. We can work through this." I paused in the doorway but didn't turn around. "They deserve better than lies, Rachel," I said. "So do I." The drive home was when it finally hit me. How was I supposed to tell Sophie and Max that their mother had been living a double life? That the foundation of our family had been built on deception? The thought of their pain made my hands clamp down on the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. When I pulled into the driveway, my sister Hannah was waiting inside with the kids. She'd brought them home and told them only that their mom had been in an accident. Their faces were full of worry as they rushed me with questions. "Is Mom okay? What happened? When can we see her?" I pulled them both into a tight hug, then gently asked Hannah if she could give us some space. One look at my face told her everything she needed to know. She squeezed my shoulder and stepped outside without a word. I sat down with Sophie and Max on the living room couch, took a deep breath, and chose my words carefully. "Mom is in the hospital," I began. "Physically, she's going to be okay. She has a broken wrist, some bruises, and a concussion, but she'll recover." Relief passed over their faces, but I could tell they knew there was more coming. "There's something else I need to tell you," I said carefully. "And it's going to be hard to hear." My heart felt like it was breaking all over again as I continued. "The reason your mom is in the hospital is complicated. She wasn't where she told us she was." They both looked at me, wide-eyed. "She had an inappropriate relationship with a coworker. Sophie's face crumpled almost instantly, tears spilling down her cheeks. Max stayed still at first, confusion written all over his face, before it hardened into anger no 11-year-old should have to feel. "You mean she was cheating on you?" he asked, his voice cracking. I nodded and rested my hand on his shoulder. "Yes." And when she told him she wanted to end it, he became violent. "So she was lying to all of us?" Sophie whispered. "All those nights, all those trips, she was with him?" "It looks that way," I said, forcing myself to stay steady for their sake. "I hate her," Max suddenly shouted, jumping to his feet. "I hate her for doing this to us." I gently pulled him back toward me. "Max, it's okay to be angry. I'm angry too. But hate is a heavy thing to carry." "Your mom made terrible choices," I continued, "but she's still your mom. And she still loves you both very much." Sophie wiped at her eyes and looked up at me. "Will you forgive her? Will things ever go back to normal?" The question hit me like a punch to the chest. I could have lied. I could have told them everything would be okay, that things would magically return to the way they were. But I had promised myself there would be no more lies in this family. "I don't know what's going to happen between your mom and me," I said honestly. "But I do know two things for sure. None of this is your fault. Not even a little. And no matter what happens, I will always be here for you. We'll get through this together." Max buried his face in my chest and wrapped his arms around me. Sophie joined him, and we sat there holding each other while they cried. I kept my own tears locked down, determined to be the one thing that didn't break that night. Later, after they finally fell asleep, Sophie only after I let her take one of my old t-shirts to bed, and Max only after making me promise he wouldn't have to see his mother until he was ready, I went into my home office and poured myself a glass of bourbon. I didn't drink it. I just stared at the amber liquid, thinking about how easy it would be to numb everything. To let myself fall apart. But that wouldn't help my kids. And it wouldn't help me. I poured the bourbon down the sink and made another decision. I was going to find out everything. No more surprises. No more half-truths. If I was going to move forward, I needed the full story. The next morning, I called Lucas Ford, a private investigator a former client had once recommended. I didn't dance around the issue. "I need to know everything about my wife's affair," I told him. "How long it's been going on? Where they went? Who knew? I need proof, real evidence, not guesses." Lucas didn't ask questions. He didn't offer sympathy. "I'll need some basic information and a retainer," he said. "When can we meet?" 3 days later, while Rachel was still in the hospital, calling my phone nonstop and leaving tearful voicemails begging me to answer, Lucas brought me his first report. The affair hadn't been going on for a few months. It had been 7. Rachel and Daniel Brooks had regularly met at the Lakefront Hotel, but also at his apartment in Lincoln Park. They'd taken weekend trips together to Wisconsin and Michigan, carefully disguised as work conferences or girls' trips with friends. The evidence was thorough and brutal. Credit card statements showing hotel stays. Restaurant receipts for intimate dinners. Phone records with thousands of text messages. Flight details for a weekend in New York, during a time Rachel had told me she was attending a marketing retreat in Philadelphia. There were photos, too. Rachel and Daniel walking into the hotel together. Holding hands in a park I didn't recognize. Kissing in his car inside the parking garage of her office building. Every image cut deep, but I forced myself to look at every single one. This was the reality I'd refused to see. "There's more," Lucas said carefully. "Do you want everything?" I nodded, bracing myself. "Based on interviews with hotel staff and some of your wife's co-workers," he said, "this wasn't Brooks's first workplace affair. He has a pattern. Married women, same companies. He's been at Price Marketing just over a year, and there are rumors of at least one other affair before your wife." It should have made me feel better, knowing Rachel had been targeted by a serial predator. Instead, it only made things worse. Had she been that easy to pull in? Had our marriage meant that little? There's one more thing, Lucas said. The night your wife was injured, she wasn't trying to end the relationship. According to a bartender he'd spoken with, the argument started because Brooks had been seen with another woman, a new account executive who'd started at Price just a month earlier. The truth hit me like a physical blow. Rachel had lied about that too. She hadn't been hurt while trying to do the right thing. She'd been hurt during a jealous fight over another woman. I thanked Lucas, paid him, and told him to keep digging. I wanted everything, every lie, every secret, every person who might have known and stayed silent. That same afternoon, Rachel's sister, Emily, showed up at my door without warning. I hadn't spoken to her, or anyone in Rachel's family, since the night everything fell apart. Ethan, we need to talk, Emily said, already trying to push past me and step inside. I moved in front of the doorway and blocked her. Whatever you need to say, you can say it right here. Her eyes hardened. Rachel is being discharged tomorrow. She needs to come home. She needs her family if she's going to heal physically and emotionally. This isn't her home anymore, I said evenly. Emily's face flushed. You can't be serious. After 16 years of marriage, you're just throwing her away over one mistake? I let out a short, humorless laugh. One mistake? She carried on a 7-month affair, I said. She lied to me. She lied to our kids. She created detailed stories to cover it all. That's not one mistake, Emily. That's hundreds of deliberate choices. People do stupid things when they're unhappy, she shot back. Maybe if you'd paid more attention to her. Stop, I said sharply, my voice dropping low. Don't you dare try to put this on me. Rachel is an adult. She made her own decisions. She loves you, Ethan. She knows she made a horrible mistake, but she wants to fix this. Doesn't your marriage vow mean anything? For better or worse? Those vows also included fidelity, I replied, honesty, and respect. All of which she abandoned for 7 months. For the first time, her anger wavered. What about the kids? They need their mother. They need stability and truth, I said. And Rachel shattered both. Yes, they need their mom, but I won't force them to pretend everything is fine when it isn't. You've always been cold, Emily snapped. So logical. So controlled. Maybe that's why she looked elsewhere, for someone who actually showed emotion. The accusation stung, but I didn't let it show. You should go, Emily, I said. Tell Rachel she can stay with you while we sort out the next steps. Legally. Her eyes widened. You're already talking to lawyers? I will be, I confirmed. And she should, too. After Emily left, I stood on the porch for a long time, replaying her words in my head. Had I been distant? Had I pushed Rachel away without realizing it? Doubt crept in, threatening the clarity I'd fought so hard to hold on to. Then I remembered the photographs. The receipts. The lies stacked on top of lies. This wasn't about my shortcomings as a husband. It was about Rachel's choices and the consequences that came with them. The next day, I got a call from Rachel's boss. Not just anyone, Gregory Price himself. I'd met him a few times at company events. Always professional. Always distant. Ethan, he said, his tone grave, I wanted to reach out personally about this terrible situation. First, to express my sincere regrets for what's happened. I appreciate that, I said, already wondering where this was going. I want you to know that Daniel Brooks has been terminated, effective immediately, he continued. We have a strict policy against workplace relationships, especially between managers and their subordinates, which he violated multiple times. That stopped me cold. Daniel was Rachel's manager. There was a brief pause. Yes, Gregory said. He's been her senior account director for the past year. You didn't know? Another piece of the puzzle snapped into place. All those complaints about her controlling boss. The late nights she blamed on unreasonable demands. She hadn't been talking about her job. She'd been talking about her lover. "We're also offering Rachel a severance package," Gregory added. While her involvement also violates company policy, there was a clear power imbalance. "We want to handle this with appropriate sensitivity." I heard what he wasn't saying. They were protecting themselves from lawsuits, from bad press. "I understand," I said. "And I appreciate you calling." Once I hung up, I called my attorney, Nathaniel Blake. I'd worked with Sam for years on business matters, but never anything this personal. He listened without interrupting, asking only a few clarifying questions. "You have several options," he said when I finished. "None of them especially pleasant." "I'm not looking for pleasant," I told him. "I'm looking for fair." "Then the first step is financial protection," he said. "Freeze or separate joint accounts. Reduce credit limits. Document all assets and liabilities immediately." I told him I'd already started moving half of our joint savings into a separate account and keeping detailed records of every transaction. "Next," he continued, "you'll need to decide whether you're pursuing divorce or legal separation. Based on what you've told me, you have grounds for an at-fault divorce in Illinois, which could affect asset division and support." "What about the kids?" I asked. "I want primary custody." Sam's tone shifted. "That's more complicated. Courts generally favor joint custody unless one parent is deemed unfit. Infidelity alone doesn't usually meet that standard." I nodded, absorbing a reality I didn't like. "What about price marketing?" I asked. "Do I have any recourse there?" Their senior employee was having an affair with his married subordinate. "Possibly," Sam said. "Workplace harassment laws could apply here, especially given the power imbalance between them. But that claim would belong to Rachel, not you." "Unless?" I asked. "Unless you could prove the company's negligence directly harmed you," he explained. "For example, if they knew about the relationship and failed to intervene, allowing it to continue." But that's a difficult case to build. I thought about what Lucas had told me about Daniel's reputation, the rumors of past affairs, the possibility that price marketing had looked the other way. "I'll think about it," I said. "For now, I want to focus on protecting my kids." By the time Rachel was released from the hospital, I had a temporary plan in place. I took a leave of absence from work so I could be home with Sophie and Max. I changed the locks. I contacted their school and explained the situation, asking teachers and counselors to alert me to any changes or concerns. Rachel moved in with Emily, just like I'd said she would. The day after she was discharged, she came by the house while the kids were at school. Her bruises were fading but still visible, and her wrist was wrapped in a cast. I met her on the porch and made no move to let her inside. "I need to get some of my things," she said quietly. "I've packed a suitcase," I replied, nodding to the large bag sitting by the door. "Anything else you need can go through my attorney." "Sam Blake." Her face crumpled. "Ethan, please. Can't we just talk?" "I made a terrible mistake, but I love you." "I love our family. We can work through this." "There is no we anymore, Rachel," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "You destroyed that over 7 months of lying and cheating." "People survive affairs," she insisted. "Marriages recover from this all the time." "Some do," I said. "But I don't think ours will. Not because of the affair alone, but because of the scale of the deception. You were sleeping with your boss while complaining to me about him. You were taking trips with him while I stayed home raising our kids. And you weren't even trying to end it. You were fighting because he was cheating on you." Her eyes widened. "How do you?" "I know everything," I cut in. "Every hotel. Every weekend trip. Every lie you told me and the kids. And I know you only got caught because Daniel started seeing someone else and you confronted him." Tears streamed down her face. "That's not true. I was ending it. I told him it was over." "Stop lying," I said, my voice finally cracking. "Even now, after everything, you're still lying." The kids, she said quickly, changing direction. They need me. You can't keep me from them. I'm not, I replied. Max isn't ready to see you. Sophie is hurt and confused. When they're ready, we'll arrange visits on their terms. Her expression hardened. You've turned them against me. No, I said calmly. You did that when you chose your affair over your family's trust. Before she could respond, a car pulled into the driveway. Daniel Brooks stepped out. My blood went cold. This was the man who had slept with my wife. The man who had shared moments that were supposed to belong to me alone. And this was also the man who had beaten her badly enough to put her in a hospital bed. What the hell is he doing here? I demanded, instinctively stepping between Rachel and him. I asked him to come, Rachel admitted. I thought if we both talked to you, if we explained. Explained? I echoed. What exactly do you think he could explain that would change anything? Daniel approached slowly, his hands raised in a weak gesture of surrender. Mr. Walker, I know you have every reason to hate me. You're damn right I do, I snapped. There was a violent confrontation between her and her partner during the affair. Give me one reason I shouldn't put you in the hospital right now. He flinched. It wasn't like that. I never meant to hurt her. Things just escalated. Escalated, I repeated flatly. That's your excuse for breaking her wrist and giving her a concussion? Ethan, please, Rachel cut in. We're just trying to make things right. I looked at the two of them, and suddenly it clicked. You're back together, I said. After everything, after he put you in the hospital, you took him back. Rachel didn't answer. She didn't have to. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that seemed to catch all three of us off guard. Unbelievable, I said. You know what? You deserve each other. Two liars destroying lives and calling it love. Daniel stepped closer. I love Rachel. What happened between us was wrong, the affair, not just the incident. We both know that. But now we're trying to be honest and move forward. Honest? I repeated. You wouldn't recognize honesty if it slapped you in the face, which is exactly what I'm holding myself back from doing right now. His face darkened. He took another step toward me, his body tensing. You think you're better than me, he said. Than us? With your perfect life and your moral high ground? You have no idea what Rachel and I share. Something inside me snapped. Before I had time to stop myself, my fist flew out and connected with his jaw. The impact sent him stumbling backward, and the sharp pain that shot through my hand didn't even register compared to the grim satisfaction of watching him hit the ground on my driveway. Get off my property, I said, my voice eerily calm. Both of you. Daniel struggled back to his feet, clutching his jaw. For a second, I thought he might come at me, but Rachel grabbed his arm. Let's go, Daniel, she said quickly. This isn't helping. I turned to her, my chest tight with anger and disbelief. I'm still the mother of your children, she said, a defiant edge creeping into her voice. You can't just erase me from their lives. I never said I would, I replied evenly. But you both need to understand something. This little reconciliation you've staged doesn't change anything. I'm still filing for divorce. I'm still seeking primary custody. And I'm still going to make sure the truth about who you are comes out. I walked inside and shut the door. Through the window, I watched as Rachel grabbed the suitcase, snapped something angrily at Daniel, and climbed into his car. They drove away, leaving me standing alone in a house that once held a family I thought was happy. That night, when Sophie and Max came home from their after-school activities, I sat them down at the kitchen table. Your mom came by today to pick up some of her things, I told them. She's staying with Emily for now. Did she ask about us? Sophie asked softly. Yes, I said. She misses you both a lot and wants to see you when you're ready. Max's face hardened. I'm not ready. I don't know if I ever will be. I wrapped an arm around his shoulders. That's okay, buddy. No one is going to force you to see her until you want to. Is she coming back home? Sophie asked. I took a slow breath. No, sweetheart. Your mom and I are getting a divorce. That means we won't be married anymore, and we won't be living together. Tears welled in Sophie's eyes, but she nodded like she'd already braced herself for the answer. Max leaned into me, his body stiff with tension. There's something else you should know, I continued, deciding they deserved the truth. The man your mom was seeing, Daniel, he was here today too. The guy who hurt her? Max said sharply. Why would she be with him after what he did? I chose my words carefully. Sometimes adults make complicated choices that don't make sense. Your mom and Daniel have decided to continue their relationship. That's messed up, Max said flatly. It is what it is, I replied. But I want you both to remember this, none of this is your fault. Not even a little. And nothing changes how much your mom and I love you. But everything is changing, Sophie said, tears spilling down her cheeks. Our whole family is broken. I pulled her close. Some things are changing, yes. But my love for you isn't. My commitment to being your dad isn't. We're still a family, just a different kind now. I held them as they tried to make sense of a reality none of us had asked for, wondering how we'd ended up here and what came next. The following weeks blurred together, meetings with lawyers, therapy appointments for the kids, and my attempts to keep life as normal as possible. Rachel made several efforts to see the children. Max refused every time, and Sophie only agreed to one supervised lunch at a restaurant. I didn't attend that lunch. Instead, my sister Hannah went with Sophie. When they came back, Sophie was quiet and distant. How did it go? I asked gently after Hannah left. She shrugged, tugging at a loose thread on her sweater. Weird. Mom kept crying and saying how much she missed us. Daniel was there too, even though Aunt Hannah told her not to bring him. My jaw tightened. Daniel was there? He mostly stayed in the car, Sophie said. But he came in at the end to say hi. Her face twisted uncomfortably. He tried to be nice. Said Mom talks about me and Max all the time. I didn't like it. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. I'm sorry that happened, Sophie. It won't happen again. She said she's going to fight for us, Sophie added quietly. She said you're turning us against her and that she won't let you keep us from her. A chill ran through me, not because I doubted my case, but because it was clear Rachel was willing to drag the kids into a custody war. Your mom loves you, I said carefully. She's hurting, and sometimes hurt people say things they shouldn't. Sophie looked up at me, her eyes far too knowing for 14. I think she meant it, Dad. The next day, legal papers arrived. Rachel was formally contesting my request for primary custody with one of her own. She claimed I was alienating the children and creating a hostile environment. She was also seeking half of my business assets, arguing that she'd contributed significantly to my success. Sam called not long after. This is just the opening move, he said. She doesn't have a strong case for primary custody, especially with the affair and her continued relationship with the man who assaulted her. As for your business, we can show it was established before the marriage and kept separate. What about the alienation claim? I asked. It's pretty standard in cases like this, Sam explained. But your kids are old enough that the court will seriously consider their wishes, especially Max. The fact that you've already put them in therapy and are following professional guidance works strongly in your favor. Even with Sam's reassurances, the legal fight got uglier by the week. Rachel's attorney, a sharp, aggressive woman named Vanessa Cole, painted me as an emotionally distant workaholic who had driven my wife into someone else's arms. She submitted sworn statements from Rachel's friends and family, all claiming I was cold, inattentive, and absent. Sam responded in kind. He gathered statements from my friends, co-workers, and even the kids' teachers, all describing my involvement in their lives and my reputation as a devoted father. We also submitted the private investigator's report, photos, timelines, and detailed proof of Rachel's deception laid out in black and white. The hardest part came when Max and Sophie were interviewed by a court-appointed guardian ad litem, whose job was to represent their best interests. Both kids spoke honestly, Max about his anger, Sophie about her confusion and pain. They each said they wanted to live primarily with me. Sophie added that she was open to seeing her mother regularly, but only under specific conditions. As the case dragged on, draining time and emotional energy, I found it harder to stay as strong as I'd promised my kids I would be. Late at night, after they were asleep, I'd sit alone in my home office, staring at old family photos, trying to understand how something that once felt so solid could fall apart so completely. It was during one of those nights that my phone rang from an unfamiliar number. "Mr. Walker, this is Claire Thompson. I used to work at Price Marketing with your wife." I didn't recognize the name right away. "How can I help you, Ms. Thompson?" "I think I might be able to help you," she said. "I left Price 6 months ago, but I was there when Daniel Brooks was hired." "There's something you should know." Claire explained that Daniel had been fired from his previous job because of inappropriate relationships with married co-workers. Price Marketing had known about this, it came up during his background check, but they hired him anyway because of his impressive client portfolio. "Gregory Price knew?" I asked, thinking back to my conversation with Rachel's boss. "Not only did he know," Claire said, "he personally told HR to ignore the red flags because Daniel was bringing in a major pharmaceutical client." My pulse quickened. This was exactly the kind of negligence Sam had mentioned. "Would you be willing to put that in a statement?" I asked. "Officially. For the court." There was a pause. "That's why I'm calling," she said. "People in the industry talk. What happened to your family wasn't right, and Price Marketing isn't innocent here." The next day, I forwarded Claire's statement to Sam. He immediately grasped its importance. "This changes everything," he said. "We now have evidence that Price Marketing knowingly employed someone with a history of workplace sexual misconduct, putting your wife and others at risk. We can add the company to the lawsuit and claim their negligence contributed to the destruction of your marriage." It was a turning point. Once Price Marketing was named in the suit, their attorneys contacted us almost immediately, pushing for a private settlement. They offered a substantial amount in exchange for a non-disclosure agreement and removal of the company from the case. After careful thought and long conversations with Sam, I accepted. Not for the money, but for what it represented. Their willingness to pay was an admission of guilt, an acknowledgement that their choices had played a role in destroying my family. Word of the settlement spread fast. Rachel and Daniel found out almost immediately. The next day, Rachel called me, crying. "How could you do this?" she demanded. "Price Marketing is firing Daniel because of your lawsuit. They say he's a liability now." "Actions have consequences," I said simply. "His. Yours. And the company's." "You're destroying everything in my life," she accused. "First our marriage, then my relationship with the kids, now my career and Daniel's." The accusation was so backwards, so detached from reality, that I actually laughed. "Rachel, listen to yourself," I said. "You destroyed our marriage with your affair. You damaged your relationship with the kids by betraying their trust. You put your career at risk by sleeping with your boss. None of that was my doing. You never loved me," she shot back bitterly. "If you had, you would have fought for our marriage instead of throwing it away." "I loved you more than you'll ever understand," I replied, my voice steady despite the pain. "I loved the woman I thought you were. But that person doesn't exist, and I respect myself too much to fight for a lie." After I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: closure. Rachel's refusal to take responsibility confirmed I was doing the right thing by moving forward without her. The custody battle ended sooner than I'd expected. Faced with the evidence we'd gathered and the children's clearly stated wishes, Rachel's attorney advised her to accept a joint custody arrangement. I was granted primary physical custody. Rachel would have the kids every other weekend, one evening a week for dinner, and additional time during school holidays. On the day the divorce was finalized, I sat in the courtroom and watched Rachel sign the papers, her face blank with resignation. Daniel wasn't there. Their relationship had ended shortly after he lost his job, something that surprised me only in how predictable it was. As we walked out of the courthouse, Rachel stopped me one last time. "I know you probably won't believe this," she said quietly, barely meeting my eyes, "but I am sorry, Ethan. For everything." I studied her face, the same face I'd once trusted more than anyone in the world, and felt a heavy swirl of emotions settle in my chest. Anger was there. So was sadness. But what I felt most was exhaustion, the kind that comes when you finally run out of hope. "I believe you're sorry this ended the way it did," I said slowly. "I just don't know if you're sorry for the decisions that got us here." She didn't argue. She didn't defend herself. She just stood there in silence, and somehow that silence said more than any apology she could have offered. "What are you going to tell the kids?" she asked. "The truth," I said. "That our marriage is over. But that our responsibility to them isn't. That we both love them even if we couldn't stay married." Her eyes filled with tears. "I do love them, Ethan. More than anything." "Then prove it," I said. "Not with crying. Not with promises. Prove it with consistency. With honesty. With respecting their feelings." After that, things unraveled fast. Without Daniel, without her job, and with limited time with the kids, Rachel started falling apart. The drinking got worse. A few times, she showed up for visits smelling of alcohol, her words slurred just enough that I couldn't ignore it. I turned her away every time. It never got easier. About 2 months after the divorce was finalized, Emily called me late one night. "Ethan, I'm scared for her," she said, her voice tight. "She's drinking constantly. She keeps saying she's ruined everything, that she has nothing left." Despite everything she'd done, my chest tightened. "Has she said she wants to hurt herself?" I asked. "Not directly," Emily said. "But she's not okay. She needs serious help." I rubbed my face and sighed. "I'll call her therapist. Maybe they can step in." "She needs more than therapy," Emily pushed. "She needs her family. She needs to know she hasn't lost everything." "I can't fix this for her," I said. "I can't undo the divorce. I can't pretend the affair never happened." "You don't have to take her back," Emily snapped. "But if something happens to her, how are you going to explain that to your children?" That crossed a line. "Don't put that on me," I said firmly. "Rachel is an adult. Her choices are her own. I'll contact her therapist, but that's where my responsibility ends." I did call Dr. Lawson, her therapist. She thanked me and promised to follow up immediately. I honestly believed that was the right move and that Rachel would finally get the help she needed. 3 days later, at 2:17 in the morning, my doorbell rang. I came downstairs half asleep, my heart already pounding. 2 police officers stood on my porch. In that instant, I knew my life was about to change again. "Mr. Walker?" the woman asked. "Yes," I said quietly. "I'm Officer Bennett. This is Officer Ramirez. May we come in?" "It's about your ex-wife, Rachel Walker." I led them into the living room, grateful beyond words that Sophie and Max were still asleep upstairs. "What happened?" I asked. Officer Bennett's voice softened. "I'm very sorry. Ms. Walker was involved in a single-vehicle accident earlier tonight. Her car left the road on Lakeshore Drive and struck a concrete barrier." "Is she alive?" I asked, even though I already knew. "Tragically, she passed away following the accident." The room seemed to tilt. I sat down hard, the weight of it crushing the air from my lungs. No matter how broken things had become, I had never wanted this ending. Authorities reported that alcohol was involved in the accident. "Anyone else hurt?" I asked numbly. "No, sir. She was alone." They explained next steps, reports, notifications, follow-ups, but I barely heard them. My mind was already racing ahead to Sophie and Max. To the impossible task of telling them their mother was gone. to how this moment would shape their lives forever. After they left, I sat in the dark living room until dawn, flooded with grief, anger, guilt, and an overwhelming sadness for a future that would never exist. Before the kids woke up, Emily called. They found a note, she said through sobs. In her apartment. It's for you and the kids. I think you should read it. I drove to her house immediately. She handed me the envelope without saying a word. Inside was a single page, written in Rachel's shaky handwriting. The words slanted across the paper, uneven and unsteady. Ethan, Sophie, and Max. I know nothing I say can undo the damage I caused. I tried to find a way forward, to build something out of the wreckage I made, but I can't escape the weight of what I've done. Ethan, you were right. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was good. It was worth fighting for, and I threw it away for something empty and destructive. Daniel never loved me. I see that clearly now. But even if he had, it would never excuse what I did to you or our children. You deserved better than my lies. Sophie and Max, my beautiful children. I held the note in my hands, reading Rachel's words over and over, each line heavy with regret. She was trying to reach us one last time, to explain, to apologize, to say goodbye. Her handwriting wobbled and slanted, a visible trace of the despair and intoxication that had shadowed her final days. Ethan, Sophie, Max, it began. I am so sorry for the confusion and pain I've brought into your lives. You deserved a mother who put you first, who protected you, who made choices that kept you safe instead of causing harm. My failures as a wife don't erase the love I feel for you. That love has always been real, pure, even when my actions were not. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't know if I deserve it. I only hope you understand that I now realize, too late, what I destroyed. The emptiness I feel isn't because I lost a lover or a job, it's because I lost the things that mattered most, our family, your trust, our future together. I am so deeply sorry for everything. I folded the paper carefully and returned it to the envelope. Her words were a confession, an apology, a farewell all at once. They didn't undo what had happened, but they revealed a clarity Rachel had never shown while alive. Did you know she was this desperate? Emily's voice trembled as she asked, hollowed by grief. I shook my head. I knew she was struggling, but I didn't realize how deep it had gone. Could we have done more? She asked quietly, without accusation, only uncertainty. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe. Or maybe her path was already set by choices that couldn't be undone. We sat in silence, two people bound by grief for a woman who was now gone. How will you tell the children? Emily finally asked. I inhaled slowly, bracing myself. Honestly. Gently, but honestly. Telling Sophie and Max that their mother was gone was the hardest thing I had ever done. Their reactions were immediate and raw. Sophie collapsed in tears, while Max froze, his face locked in shock and confusion. Did she do it on purpose? Sophie whispered through her sobs. I chose my words carefully. The police believe it was an accident. She had been drinking. But she left a note. It shows she was in a very dark place emotionally. Can we read it? Max's voice cracked, his first words since I had broken the news. Yes, I said. When you're ready. It's for you as much as it was for me. The days that followed blurred together, funeral arrangements, condolence calls, supporting my children as they navigated their grief. Rachel, in death, had transformed in their eyes not just as the mother who betrayed their trust, but as a tragic figure, someone destroyed by her own mistakes. At the funeral, I stood with Sophie and Max, accepting condolences from friends and family who didn't know the full story. Daniel Brooks did not attend a small mercy. As the final prayers were said at Rachel's grave, Sophie slipped her hand into mine. Dad, are you okay? She asked softly. I looked down at my daughter, stunned by her thoughtfulness even in her own sorrow. I'm focused on you and Max right now, I said, squeezing her hand. But yes, I lost someone too. I know, she whispered. You lost her. Yes, I admitted. I lost the woman I married, the mother of my children, the life we planned. And even though it ended the way it did, it's still a loss. Max moved closer, having overheard our conversation. Do you think she really meant what she wrote? That she was sorry? I put my arm around him. I think she did. In her final days, she saw things clearly, probably for the first time in a long while. I wish she had seen them sooner, he murmured, his voice breaking. Me too, buddy, I replied, holding him close. In the months that followed, we slowly rebuilt our lives. Loss shaped our days, but it did not define them. The kids and I attended grief counseling, both individually and together. We talked about Rachel often, remembering the good times, acknowledging the pain, learning to accept the ending. One evening, about 6 months later, I found Sophie on the back porch, scrolling through old family photos on her phone. You know what's weird, she said softly. I'm starting to forget what her voice sounded like. That happens, I said gently. But you'll never forget who she was to you. The good parts, along with everything else. Do you think she found peace in the end? She asked. I had asked myself that countless times. I hope so. Her note suggested she had found some clarity, if not peace. Sometimes, understanding our mistakes is the closest we get to making peace. Sophie leaned her head on my shoulder. I miss who she used to be before all this. Me too, I admitted. But I'm grateful for what we still have each other. We sat in quiet comfort, watching the sunset over the backyard. As I reflected on everything that had brought us here, I realized how fragile life and trust can be. Rachel's betrayal had shattered our family, her death had deepened the wound, but amid the pain we had discovered resilience, honesty, and the enduring strength of our bond. The affair, the lies, the hospital stay, they had left scars. But my journey had never been about forgiveness. It was about truth, protecting my children, and finding a way forward with integrity. Rachel had faced the ultimate consequence of her choices. While I would never have wished that on her, I had learned that some breaks can't be mended, some trust can't be rebuilt, and some choices alter the course of life forever. And yet, life goes on. With courage, honesty, and love, so can we.